38. Johnson right, and they send Herman in motion. And Tarkenton has it, looking to the screen. He goes to Fredrickson, a great block. And Fredrickson, from the 20-yard line, comes all the way out to the 44, a gain of 24 yards.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. And welcome to the Gridiron. I just want to briefly go over the press conference that GM Dave Gettleman and assistant GM Kevin Abrams had the other day, where they pretty much talked about the free agency period that they just had. There was a little bit of news conference, a little bit talk about the draft, but nothing. But it was pretty much basically just about free agency. However, today, good old Dave Gettleman once again gets to have another press conference with him and scouting director Chris Pettit. So I'm going to go over that, and I'll probably have a video out on that one as well. But the press conference, it was it was a lot of the same old. The questions were all relatively decent, respectable. They only have so much time. There's only so many questions allowed to be asked, and usually the press conference is usually 20-25 minutes or so, and that's pretty much about it. The people ask questions, and then and then in return, whoever's up there, the GM or coach, whoever, gives pretty much the absolute minimum. And I said, usually all the questions usually pretty well. But every now and then you'll get one that's just kind of a little of a head scratcher. I mean, I forgot what it was, but Kim Jones of the NFL Network, I think it was like the last press conference, said something, asked Dave Gettleman about the offensive line and how it's aging, and so aging. I mean, this was like after Nate Solder didn't play last year. We had Kevin Zeitler. Okay, I'll give you that one. But you had Andrew Thomas is in his first year. Will Hernandez was in his third year at guard. Andrew Thomas first year, Will Hernandez third year, Nick Gates, I think it was his third year. Jump over Kevin Zeitler, I'll give you that one. Then you come over here, maybe Matt Parrott was in his first year. I mean, playing over here, or if he wasn't playing, he was on the sideline, possibly going to be our right tackle of the future. Shane Lemieux wasn't in there a lot, but when he was a rookie. So I mean, if we took Zeitler out and put Lemieux and Parrott in there, I mean, obviously I'm not saying we got a Hall of Fame offensive line right there. But I mean, I had a head scratcher on that one. I'm like, Andrew Thomas first year, Will Hernandez third year, Nick Gates third year, Shane Lemieux, if you had him in there at the guard, first year, Matt Parrott first. I'm just kind of scratching my head a little bit. Like, what? Aging? The last question that I got asked Dave Gettleman was about, I forgot who the guy was, but he said something like, got a lot of your other GMs out there talking bad about you, talking trash on you. I think you're taking up signing Adoree Jackson was just too much money, and they think you're, it's a horrible choice and this, that, and whatever. What do you, I always like that, kind of just nonsense. So Dave Gettleman, in his own way, just, said everybody's entitled to their opinion. Now, what I like about Dave Gettleman is, it's back and, he's going to give you usually the least amount possible. Every now and then he'll throw you a little nugget. I remember when Jerry Reese was the GM, he gave you usually the least as possible, but sometimes, I don't know, if you ask him a question, I don't know, it just seemed like he got like a little mad, or, he was always, I don't know, every now and then maybe a little ticked off by some of the questions you ask, and he'd just come back in just like a little rude way. At least with Dave Gettleman, I mean, something he'd laugh, he'd call you kiddo, call you by name, hey, how's your family doing or something, or, you know what I mean? He always has his nervous twitches going on. Sometimes he'd be like this. And one time at the press conference, somebody was asking him, I was like to have a nervous twitch. He was responding to a question, and you see him, he's just like scratching his arm. I don't know, like a nervous twitch or what it is, but at least he has a little friendlier, atmosphere to him. That Kevin Abrams, that dude, I'll tell you what, if you're playing poker with him, stone face. He's just the whole time he was like, I did see him blink his eyes a couple of times, but boy, that dude was a stone face, and he gave you most of it very short answers. You'll be like, yes, that's true. Somebody asked him a question, it's just very minimum and like almost no facial expression whatsoever. He's just like looking straight ahead the whole time. It was like, wow. But a couple of the questions were asked. One was to Kevin Abrams, was about the upcoming the salary cap situation possibly for next year, and maybe the year after that, and so on. As far as like, because the salary cap this year obviously came down. And you still signed some guys. I mean, you got Adoree Jackson for $39 million. You signed Kenny Golladay to like an $18 million year deal. You signed Leo the Lion, I think $63 million for 3 years. You know what I mean? And so they asked him, and quite, he said, next year might be a little of a challenge. He said, kind of going forward, the year after that, and the year after that, should hopefully be better. But I mean, he's right, because I mean, you still don't know, how many fans are going to be in the stands. You don't know. So if get the virus still going on, everybody's getting their vaccines, or a lot of people getting their vaccines. So maybe, possibly, hopefully, that'll start opening up some more seats. Now, whether it's going to mean full, everybody, they can sell the stadium out, or they can get, instead of being like last year, have like 5,000 or 10,000 maybe in there. Maybe they can go to 20,000 or 30,000. Who knows? You got to wait and see. But that is a good point. With Dave Gettleman, they talking about how do you figure out, in the beginning after the season, and how you go after, if you need a certain position, are you going to go after free agency, you're going to go to the draft, or how are you going to do that? And he said they have like an op room, I believe it was something like that, and they have like 2 boards, and they of course he doesn't want to throw any major speculations out there. He said, well, just suppose we were looking for a kicker. He didn't want to say nothing like, well, just suppose we were looking for an edge rusher, or just suppose, we were looking maybe for a wide receiver. So he didn't say, he said, let's just say we were looking for a kicker. So basically, I think it was like, if he was looking for a kicker, he'd have, there would be color coded like kickers, and if it was a lot of good prospects in the draft, it would be color coded that way. Or if there was a lot of kickers in free agency, it would be color coded that way. And what he said is that they would marry the 2 of them up, which makes sense, and say, okay, the kickers, if we're looking for a kicker, in free agency there aren't many, so maybe we might have to look in the draft. Now that kind of makes some sense, because in one respect, because they went after Leonard Floyd, who wound up re-signing with the Rams for 4 years. $64 million, so it's a nice chunk of change. Can't blame the guy on that. Plus, that's where he played last year, and they had a great season. So, but I guess that makes sense. Going after Leonard Floyd, you know what you got with him. Now maybe they're not so high on, in the top first round or so. Maybe he's not so crazily high on somebody. Because Leonard Floyd, he got some sacks last year. Kwity Paye, his last season he played, he didn't get any sacks. Phillips, phenomenal, but it's injury history. so maybe they're not at the top of the draft. Maybe they don't think it's that. So maybe that's why they went after Floyd. But then there's a couple of head scratchers there. Well, there's so many wide receivers coming out in this draft. How come you want How come you went after Kenny Golladay and signed him to the big deal when there's a lot of good wide receivers in the draft? That's a little bit of a head scratcher. Why did you sign? Make it a point to go after Adoree Jackson, a number 2 cornerback, when there's a lot of cornerbacks in the draft. That's it's not like Adoree Jackson. We needed a number 1, and we went. That's why no, he's the number 2. We got the number 1. So you're just looking for somebody who would be a good, adequate number 2 cornerback, but there's boatloads of cornerbacks in it. So some of that didn't make much sense. I mean, the signing of Leo the Lion, big contract. What he, on that defensive front, what he's doing, what he did last year, the 11 and a half sacks. You ain't finding that in the draft. So that makes sense why they went after him. But just some of it, just a little bit of a head scratcher. They also asked about Gettleman, because the last 3 drafts that he had, the first pick was all offense. Saquon, Daniel Jones, and Andrew Thomas. Now, might he break the, streak and go defense this time? Because he also said defense helps, they were talking about try to help Daniel Jones. He said one of the things he said was, first thing you want to do is get guys in front of them that can help keep them upright, the offensive line. Then you want to give them weapons. All right, which they got with Golladay, possibly another wide receiver in the draft. But he also mentioned, he said, offense scores points, but defense wins championships. And he also mentioned that defense helps Jones too. He also mentioned about signing Kyle Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph, helps Jones. Kyle Rudolph also helps maybe Saquon Barkley, blocking wise. So all these things help each other. But he also did mention, that defense wins championships. Defense helps Jones as well. Then the final last thing I want to go over, they were talking about, one guy asked him, "What do you think about your particular team's edge rushers?" And Gettleman, straight up said, on for Carter and Ximines, they're rehabbing. We would love to have him last year, but they both got hurt. It is what it is. He also said Carter Coughlin and Cam Brown, they're coming along, right? But he did say, sounded like he said, but we're going to do better. That's what it sounded like he said. Meaning, they're eyeing somebody up. Whether it's the first round or maybe trading back in an extra pick or something like that, or maybe, whatever. But it sounds like they're going to go, they're looking for an impactful, somebody who can rush the quarterback. Whether, Micah Parsons in the middle and have him, rush the quarterback a lot or whatever, or some type of edge rusher. But it sounded like we're going to do better. So he might possibly be looking to draft an edge rusher somewhere along the line, the first couple rounds, or first 2, second, third round, somewhere around there. So don't be surprised if the Giants wind up going, because he did mention defense wins championships, defense helps Jones, edge rushers we're going to do better. So it's just a couple of nuggets from the press conference, because they asked the questions, and most of the time the answers are the absolute barest minimum. But every now and then with Gettleman, he expands sometimes on some of his questions, some of his answers. I'm sorry, and he might throw a little nugget out there. So that's kind of my recap from the press conference that they had the other day, and I'm going to have a video out once again on Gettleman and Chris Pettit on their press conference talking about the draft. Well, as always, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. You guys stay safe out there and go Giants. Woo!